Hello, my name is Gus Bedwell, and I'm a Training and Development Specialist with the Oregon State Department of Veterans Affairs. And this presentation is called Module 1, Veterans 101. Our discussion topics today are going to include the following. What is a veteran? What is the ODVA? What is the United States Department of Federal VA? And how are the ODVA and the Federal VA different? And also, how do they work together? First, let's start with what is a veteran. I imagine many of us have heard this before and been asked, what is a veteran? And clearly there are different definitions. As you'll see here, the definitions I go to are the ones that are the legal definitions in 38 CFR. That basically says anybody who served in active military, naval, or air service and who was discharged or released under conditions of honorable service. And then you have Webster's Dictionary, which is a little bit broader and basically says anybody who fought in a war as a soldier, an old soldier of long service such as a retiree, or a former member of the armed forces. And actually in Webster's Dictionary it does even include reserves and National Guard. What I want you to understand is that if a person served in the military in any capacity, they can be recognized as a veteran. I would just leave the specific details of how their service lines up to a program to that program rules and eligibility standards. It makes your job a lot easier when trying to determine who is a veteran and who is not. And then let's talk about some veteran myths. I imagine you've all heard these before. You know that all veterans have PTSD, or that only combat veterans have PTSD, or even the one I really like, there are no female combat veterans. How wrong could people be? For instance, according to the National Institute of Health 2009 report, only about 20% of returning veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan are afflicted with PTSD. And when I say afflicted, that means that they have a minor element of PTSD in some capacity within the VA's rating structure. Now, some could argue that it's because some people aren't getting help. Others could argue that it's because the VA doesn't do a very good job, in some people's opinion. The bottom line that I want you to take away from this is that not all veterans have PTSD. And the research supports that actually less than 20% have PTSD, as you see here, and PTSD is not the major problem for most veterans coming home. Then the other thing is that only combat veterans have PTSD. Well, that's a myth as well, because when you look at 38 CFR, there are other reasons a person could have PTSD, and they come from non-combat situations, as you see here, from military sexual assault, trauma, and personal assault. And then, like I said, my favorite that I love hearing people say that's a myth is there are no female combat veterans. Well, I got news for them. According to the November 23, 2011 VA report, 11% of service members serving in Iraq and Afghanistan since 2001 were women. And you know what else? They were MPs, they were convoy security, they were truck drivers, they were people that were in the middle of the combat situations. Maybe their military occupation wasn't combat, but what they were exposed to was combat. And they do come home with the combat action ribbon, and we have had female veterans who come home with Purple Hearts as well. So yes, there are female combat veterans. Let's look at the big picture though. Now that I've told you what a veteran is and I've talked about the myth, what is the foundation of what we do? What you do? And it's the veteran. That's the foundation. So if we were to start building a house, I want you to think of the veteran as the foundation, and then how does everybody else play into this? So let's first start with the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs. The Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs is a state agency. We've been in existence for 70 years, helping and advocating for veterans and their loved ones to access their federal VA benefits. With help from our partners in the county, we help the veteran community by targeting veteran services. We like to mobilize partners. We are driving veteran engagement, and we're invigorating core operations. Our goal is to help veterans and their loved ones access those VA benefits. We have some services that we provide as an agency. We're a fairly small agency of about 85 employees. Most of our services can be put into 3 lanes. We have our statewide veteran services, which is probably one of the biggest in partnerships when you consider the county VSOs and our state veteran service officers work within the State Veteran Services Department. And then there's our Veterans Homes, which actually falls under our Conservatorship and Aging Veterans Program. And we have 2 of those in the state of Oregon where veterans can go and get taken care of in their advanced age. And then we are one of 5 states who actually has a state home loan program. It's different than the federal home loan program in that we keep our own financing. We keep the loan. We have 15 and a 30-year fix. And if you qualify for it, you qualify for it. There are some catches to it in the sense that we can't do a refinance, and there is some money that needs to be up front. But in a lot of cases, it can be advantageous to veterans to look at that. So I would encourage them to look at both their federal and their state home loan program. So how do we work together? Well, imagine the ODVA as the walls to our house. And then look at the counties and the service veterans providers or veteran resource providers on schools. Look at them as the doors and windows to the community. They are the boots and grounds on campus. They are the boots and grounds in their counties. They are the boots on ground, basically with their partners and services. They're the ones who help us understand what it is that they need from us to be able to help their veterans in their local area. So I've told you a little bit about the state VA, and I've told you a little bit about how our county folks work together. Let's talk about the federal VA. Would you believe that the federal VA is the most comprehensive system of assistance for veterans of any nation in the world? It has roots that trace all the way back to 1636 when the Pilgrims of Plymouth Colony were at war with the Pequot Indians. Now, it is known as the second largest federal entity within federal government, only second to the United States Department of Defense. So it should come as no surprise that there's a mass amount of hospitals and community-based outpatient clinics and nursing homes and domiciles nationwide. And in addition, we have 147 national cemeteries. And each state has a minimum of 1 VA benefits office. And there's also a benefits office in each one of the territories of the United States as well. That is a lot of help for veterans when you think about it. So let's talk about the VA though. Now, I will be the first one to tell you as a veteran service officer and a trainer to veteran service officers that I understand the complexity and the difficultness of navigating the VA structure. I actually put that in a visual here. You notice the different sizes, the different diagrams and colors and shapes and that type of thing? Well, that's because when we discuss the VA structure with a veteran, depending on our local community member, we need to let them know that different VA offices and departments do not always communicate. Here are some examples to think about. When one updates their veteran's address and phone number with the VA Medical Center, it does not mean that it's going to be updated with the VA Regional Office. So if I'm getting medical center care and I'm also doing a benefits claim, I have to go both to the VA Medical Center and the VA Regional Office to update my addresses. Also, filing a waiver for an overpayment with the regional office does not mean that Debt Management Center knows about the waiver. Debt Management Center is an entity that what they do is they collect the money. The VA Regional Office, they're the ones who establish the decision why the Debt Management Center is going to be collected. And then lastly, if I go for an examination for a compensation and pension exam, that does not constitute or obligate the VA Medical Center to provide care. So why do I tell you this? Well, I tell you this because the veteran service officers in each one of those counties and the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs are the places you want to send your veterans to get help with all of these things. Why? Because not only do we know that the differences between the VA and all these structures, but we also know who to contact and where and how to do it. So what's the USDVA's function in all of this when it comes to the house? Well, we have the ODVA with the walls, so U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is the roof. They're the umbrella. They are the ones who cover the veteran by providing them the benefits and the resources they need to function in life. If you look at the walls, in a sense, we're a bridge between the veteran and the United States Department of Veterans Affairs to our advocacy. If you took out our walls, that wouldn't be a very healthy house, would it? So it's all about us working together to take care of the foundation of who we are, which is the veteran. So let's recap some of the differences between the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs. So first, let's start with the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. They're federal, they grant the benefits, they work with veterans nationally, and they're the second largest federal government employer, second to the Department of Defense. Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs is a state entity. We advocate for earned benefits. We work primarily with Oregon veterans, although on rare occasions we will help veterans out of the state of Oregon. It gets a little tricky. Most of the time when we help them, it's to get them through whatever they're dealing with at that moment and then get them to the state provider that they're working with. And then we're a relatively small state agency, relying heavily on partners. We have less than 85 employees. I don't even know where we're at in the structure of the state, but I will tell you that we do quite a bit when it comes to accessing those benefits for veterans and accessing those partners to help our veterans. A little bit about our population. You know, in 2014, Oregon's population was 3.3 million. Oregon veterans account for 1 in 10 Oregonians. That's 330,000 plus. But what's really interesting is that when you look at the demographics, as you keep breaking it down, only about 1 in 3 veterans, it's about 90,000 plus, are actually using a VA benefit. So we have a lot of work to do, as you can imagine. And so being in partnership with you as you go through this training to be able to access veterans and get them to us is a huge part of that piece. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to access this training. I hope it's been helpful to you. And remember, if you need help, please contact the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs or the county veteran service officers within your county. Thank you and have a wonderful day.